Good day, students. Welcome to this tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at cash budget, the question paper, paper 2, that was written last year, 2022. Without the waste of time, let's look at that question paper budgeting. Question 3, it had 45 marks, it had 35 minutes. It tells you that it's a kind of cut and paste exercise, and it has a lot of free marks that you must take advantage of. Cash budget is about what you budgeted for versus what you actually spend. So in advising the management at this stage of time now, you are integrating the whole work of accounting by using your logic. Let's look at this exercise of cash budget and see how much marks can we pick up there. It's about 3 marks, guys. Remember that. Cash budget, question 3. The information relates to JR Sanitizers Pty Ltd. The CEO is Juanita Rose. Required, complete the creditors payment schedule for December 2022. And 3.2, calculate the missing figures to Roman figure 1 to 3 in the cash budget. And then you look at the solution, or rather the answer sheet given. This part, partially, it will be completed for you. That is part of the reason why it could be 35 minutes. And just what you have to do here is to cut and paste. And this is how it's going to be given to you. If they give you the sometimes they can change it here and there, but if you understand what is the creditor's payment schedule, you will never have challenges in answering this question. Let's complete that statement. Let's look at 3.1, what is given in terms of the information, because we want to complete the creditor's payment schedule. It has to do with cost of sales. It has to do with payment to creditors. So let's read information given, which is A, sales, cost of sales, and debtors collection. Total sales, you are given October, November, December. Cost of sales, total sales, you are given November, December, and October as well. Cash sales comprise 30% of total sales. Debtors settle their accounts in the month following the month of sales. We don't have a problem about that. It's about the debtors. We are requested to deal with creditors. So let's look at information B, which it will tell us more about creditors. Purchase of stock and payment to creditors. A base stock is maintained. Stock sold is replaced in the same month. Cash purchases comprises 15% of total sales, of total purchases, Creditors are paid according to the following trend. 80% are paid in the month of purchase to receive a 5% discount. 20% are paid in the month after purchase. Now you look at the solution or answer sheet given. October, they already calculated credit purchases for us. November, we're left with December credit purchases. Now, to ensure that you are correct, you can test, because partially they did this for you to actually give you an indication that you can actually test if you want to test. So this is our calculator. And look at the question. It says here, when we deal with purchases, we deal with credit purchases. So let's look at credit purchases given. They said cash purchases comprises 15% of total purchases. Now you look at cost of sales. Here our cost of sales, 354,000 for October. Just to test this 354,000 multiplied by 15% is cash, 85% is credit, multiplied by 85%. So 300,900, you can see it's already calculated for us. 300,900. So 331,500 also for November. You can do that kind of calculation and say 390,000 for November. 390,000 just to test and make sure that. But these tests are done by a student who understands the work, and to ensure that you get these free marks, 85%, you can see that it is 331,500. Let's check. You just have to check that. 331,500. Now it tells you that for December also you must do the same operation. how to do the same operation for December is to say 262,000 multiplied by 85% to be credit purchases. 85 divided by 100. 222,700, and that 222,700 forms part of your solution. 222,700. Is that so? Let's check. 222,700. You have the answer there. Now, we're just looking at the logic here. And they said again, 80% are paid, creditors are paid according to this trend. 80% are paid in the month of purchase to receive a 5% discount. Now, you look at this information. We have October. This is October. But November will make more sense. But this October and 6180, how did they get 6180? They took 300, 900, 300, 900. And look at the question. It says 80% are paid in the month of purchase to receive a 5% discount. Okay, that happened in October. They received that a 5% discount. But November, this was 20% are paid in the month after purchase. So times 20% is that 6180 that they got there after the month of purchase. Now, but when you look at November, 331,500, the first one was calculated to take advantage of that 5% discount. And this one is 331,500 times that remaining percentage, 331,500. That percentage, again, we can check, is 20% are paid in the month after purchase. 20% are paid in the month after purchase. And that is multiplied by, 2. And when you get that, 2, it's 66,300. 66,300. But when you look at December, in the same month of December, it's going to be 222,700 multiplied by 95% of that discount, multiplied by, because in the first month, remember, they take advantage of 5% discount. And in that month, again, it's 80% multiplied by 80%. And what you get there is this amount that comes here. Let me record it in that same line. And do use your calculator to do that. Is 222,700 multiplied by 95% multiplied by 80. And you get 169,252. 169,252. And you conclude your story, which is equals to this amount plus this, the total, and then you conclude your marks. You got your maximum marks for 3.1. Let's look at 3.2. What is the story about 3.2? Calculate the missing figures denoted by Roman figure 1 to Roman figure 3 in the cash budget. And then that means they did the cash budget for us. We just have to show them what is the calculation for collection from debtors. Okay, collection from debtors. Okay, that's how we're going to do it. Collection from debtors, you read now the information about the debtors, because now this collection that they are asking us is denoted by Roman figure number 1, and it's in December. So we need to understand what were the collections in December. Now remember the first adjustment, it said Cash sales comprise 30% of total sales. We're happy with that. Debtors settle their accounts in the month following the month of sale. That means the November will be paid in December, the December will be paid in January, and so forth. So it tells you that now we need to take total sales of 643,500. 643,500 multiplied by why 643,500. 643,500 is for November, and paid, settle their account in the month following the month of sales. It was followed to December, but this is total sales, and credit sales is equals to 70% because we're looking for credit sales multiplied by 70%. And what else? And that's it. There is not any other information that they spoke about. And when you do that, you just use your calculator again and say 643,500 multiplied by 80%, and it was paid in December. 643,500 multiplied by 7%, which is represents 70%. 450, 450. 450,000, 450,000. So you're happy with that. You answered that first question. What is Roman figure number 2? Has to do with rent income. Rent income, storage space is rented at a fixed rate per square meter. Now you look at the rent. What do are they looking for the rent in December, or are they looking for the rent in November? It's also what needs to be checked. Okay, they are looking for a rent amount for December. Now, in answering that question, you read the adjustment. Storage space is rented at a fixed rate per square meter. An existing tenant occupied 60 square meters. His lease expires on 30 June 2023. Okay. A new tenant has signed a lease agreement for the period 1 December to 30 June to 30 November. She will occupy a 75 square meters storage space. Now, we have the existing tenant paying a certain amount. There is also a new tenant. So the amount of an existing tenant has nothing to do with the amount of the new tenant. So you must add them together to see what will happen in the next subsequent month in terms of payment in December. So you look now, they didn't give us an amount. So the clue, where is the clue? The clue is the amount recorded of rent from November, which was 15,000. Now, in terms of this 15,000, the tenant pays this 15,000 for the year already, because he paid for until 30 June. So we know that that 15,000 per 60 square meter which is equals to, so that we get an indication of a December amount. So per square meter is 15,000 divided by 60, which is 250. $250. We're okay with that, but the trend will be 250 now, because that tenant was paying 250 per square meter. Now this 250 again multiplied by how many square meters of the new tenant? 75 square meters. So the new tenant, in essence, she's paying 75 square meters, which is equals to 250 times 75. 18,750. 18,750. So now the total amount would be that 15,000 of November of that tenant that was already there, plus the amount of the new tenant, which is more square meters, 18,750. Together, these amounts is an amount that belongs to December, which is plus 15,000. 33,750. This is your answer for this Roman figure number 2. Let's look at Roman figure number 3. Roman figure number 3 has to do with salaries. Hence, I was checking carefully whether they are speaking about November or December. Look at this time. The examiners are requesting the amount for November. They are not requesting the amount for December. 55,595 is already recorded for us, and that is the clue, regardless of what the question is. That will be our clue. 55,595. Let me read the question, what the question has to do with these salaries. A new employee will be appointed from 1 December 2022. He will earn 14,840 per month. Now, that is the new employee. We are requested to calculate the amount for November. Now, all other employees will receive an increase of 4.5% per annum effective from 1 December. Now, it tells you that, hence I said this amount is the clue, and let's minus the amount for that employee for December, because we are not interested in the amount of 14,840. 14,840, because in any case, this amount is for December, and it came December, and we are calculating what happened really in November. 595 minus 14,840, which is equals to 4755. 40,755. And what happened now? In December, these employees will get an increase, and all other employees will receive an increase of 4.5% per annum effective from 1 December. So to deduct that must be deducted to say, okay, 40,755 multiplied by 100% divided by 104.5 in essence, so that you deduct that amount, and it's gonna be equals to, if you take that multiplied by 100 divided by 104.5%, which is 39,000. So the amount in essence for November is going to be 39,000. That's the 39,000 that must be recorded here. Going now to the next question, which is 3.3.1. Calculate the deposit that will be paid for the purchase of the company vehicle during December. Calculate the amount of the deposit that will be paid. Let's look at what are the adjustments. What is the adjustment E has to do with this information of a new company vehicle, purchase of company vehicle for the chief executive officer, and insurance. A new company vehicle will be purchased on 1 December 2022. A deposit of 25% of the cost of the vehicle, excluding interest, will be paid on this date. The remaining balance will be paid in equal monthly installment of 2,800 over 24 months, including interest with effect from. So 2,800 over 20. So let's deal with that. 20 20 400 multiplied by 24, so that we see how much, and that definitely is how we're going to be calculating a deposit in terms of that. A deposit, so 2400 multiplied by 24, and then 489,600. 489,600. Let's look at this, the sequence of questions. Interest calculated for the full 2-year period is 45,600. Remember, that amount included interest. Let's deduct this interest on this amount. Let's deduct interest on this amount of 489,600 minus the interest that forms part 45,600. 45,600. These are your free marks, which is equals to, use your calculator again, minus 45,600. 444,000. Now, what is the next information? The existing insurance premium will increase by the amount applicable to the new company vehicle. It will also be payable at the end of each month from 31 December. That information we will use later. You will see how we use it. But as far as I know, or as far as this information is concerned, I'm left with that amount of 444,000. That 444,000, they paid a deposit of 25%. So if they paid the deposit of 25%, it becomes very easy, because now that deposit is equals to 444,000. That deposit is equals to 444,000 multiplied by 25 deposit, divide by, just like when you calculate, when you are given profit after tax, you want an income tax, divide by 75. So understand your work, and once you understand your work, these things become simple. And let's look at the deposit now paid was 25, divide by 75. 148,000. 148,000. 3.3, and it says refer to information E to G. Now, calculate the deposit that will be paid for the purchase of the company vehicle during December 2022. Now we look at the information about the company vehicle, which is information E. And when you look at the information E, purchase of company vehicle for the CEO and insurance, a new company vehicle will be purchased on 1 December 2022. A deposit of 25% of the cost of the vehicle, excluding interest, will be paid on this date. The remaining balance will be paid in equal monthly installments of 2,800 over 24 months, including interest with effect from 31 December 2022. Interest calculated for the full 2-year period is 45,600. Now remember, it was including interest, these 24 months payments. So we want to calculate the deposit. We are given clues here. 2,800, this is the first clue that you are given. 2,800 multiplied by what? Multiplied by 24. Do you agree? 24 months. Then let's get what is the total there. 2,800 multiplied by 24. You get 499,200. Happy with that? 499,200. What else happens here is we must deduct that interest that they are telling us. 499,200. There was interest that is there, minus. Let's look at the interest given, because it was inclusive of interest, 45,600. 45,600, which is equals to, you look at your calculator, you are quick. There are no time for leaving these marks unattended, which is going to be 452 3, 600. 4, 5, 3, 600. Now, how much was the deposit paid? The deposit paid was 25%. Now, that 25%, 4, 5, 3, 600. Remember, when we are given profit after tax, you have to calculate the tax amount is the same calculation. So how do you do it? You say multiplied by, it was 25%, divide by 100% minus 25 is equals to 75. So the answer here of the deposit is equals to multiplied by 25 divided by 75. And that is the deposit that is paid 151,200. And that's how you get your deposit. Now, Juanita is concerned about the cash position for December 2022. We're looking at the next question, 3.3.2. Let's look at it on the questions itself. Let's not use that memorandum. You might be confused. Juanita is concerned about the cash position for December 2022. She proposes moving the purchase of the vehicle to January 2023. Use the table in the answer book to show the effect of this proposal to the December 2022 cash budget. What kind of table is given there? Let's look at that. You are given cash deficit already calculated, and then deposit on vehicle. We are already told about that, and then we have 151,200. We don't have to stress about that. And then you look at now what any other adjustments that has to do with this vehicle in terms of cash budget itself. So you look at the cash budget given. You're like, okay, purchase of vehicle deposit, we calculated that deposit. We look at any other information that has to do with delivery, with insurance. Remember the insurance form part, fuel for company. Let's look at the fuel. And the fuel was 7,500. 7,500. What else we got to look at here is that insurance. And that insurance, we are not given the amount, but we are told that it increases. Let's read that adjustment again so that we come back here. They said adjustment, an existing insurance premium will increase by the amount applicable to the new company vehicle. It will also be payable at the end of each month from 31 December 2022. So that tells us that that amount is not given, but comparative figures are given, and the difference will be that increase. And that difference will be demonstrated by looking at the insurance and say 9,700 minus 6,500. 9,700 minus 6,500. 9,500 minus 6, yes, 9,500 minus 6,500. And what we get there is 9,500 minus 6,500. And the increase of that insurance is an amount of 3,000. What else do we recognize as an amount that must be recorded there? We have fuel recorded, insurance recorded, delivery expenses, and when you look at this information now, it has nothing to do with that, but you look at the installment of that vehicle, and the installment of that vehicle, you're like, okay, installment, and how much was an installment? The installment is given 9,700 minus 6,500. I think my calculation there is wrong. 9,700 minus, because by looking it doesn't balance, minus 6,500, 3,200. By looking it doesn't balance. 3,200. Yes. Now it balances, and then you look at the next question. Installment. I spoke about this installment. This installment is that installment that was paid. Remember, there was an installment of 2,800 per month. 20,800, and then you add them together. You're like, okay, equals to this amount plus this other amount. You can use your calculator, plus fuel, plus insurance, plus, don't be confused, and make sure that you attend these as they are, 62,700. And that's your answer. You don't have to stress. And then you move on to the next question, which is 3.4. 3.4, the question is, let's look at 3.4 together. We are happy with that transaction. You got your free marks. 3.4, refer to information H. Juanita is concerned about her decision in October 2022 to adjust the markup percentage and the amount actually spent on advertising. Provide 2 points to indicate whether these were wise decisions or not. Quote figures or calculations. You know, guys, when they say quote figures or calculations, they are actually saying take your free marks and quote figures. Now, here is the markup percentage, increased. Here's the units sold, increased. Here's our sales, increased. And the examiner is just looking at yourself saying it reduced or increased from which year to which year. That's it. And then you look at that, and how do you produce your answer in this particular? You look at sales. Units sold, a markup percentage. Okay, a reduction in markup. There's a reduction in markup because the budgeted was 65, but the actual used was 45. There was a reduction in markup. And you look at units sold, the actual units sold was, but the budgeted was. So the reduction in markup, just tell the examiners. First point you make there, it's about the reduction in markup. It's just that statement, and you show the examiner that the reduction of markup of 20%. Cap of 20%. You can say, and the variance is already given to you. Sales of 4390 units more than budgeted for. And that is your answer. You don't have to make problems for yourself. You look at you spoke about sales, you spoke about gross profit. Now let's speak about advertising. Let's look at advertising. What about advertising? Underspending, budget 40,000, actual 28,000. Under spending on advertising by, and then you mentioned, because the variance is already given to you, by 12,000. Or you can mention a percentage. How to do a percentage on that? You say, okay, a percentage, just to impress the examiner. Look at in terms of the percentage. The percentage is advertising. Remember, advertising is 40 minus 28,000 divided by 40,000. So we're going to say 12,000 divided by 40,000. And the percentage is 3%. It's underspent by 3%. Underspent by 3%. And you can add another one to say percentage on sales is, and that percentage on sales is, you take that and divide by amount of sales. How do you do that? You take the amount of advertising here of 28,000 or 40,000, divide by sales 584,100, not comma, not 68%, which is equals to, multiplied by 100, 6.8%. Percentage on sales is 6.8% compared to budget is. When you compare it to budget is, you tell the examiner how to compare it to the budget. Again, we took the budgeted, now the actual, vice versa. Did we took the budgeted, now we take the actual. Actual is 28,000, divide by the amount of sales is 831,546 times 100. Actual is 3.4%. Budgeted percentage on sales is 6% compared to actual is 3.4%. Is that so? 3.4%. So you mention things that has to do with sales, that has to do with advertising in terms of sales, that has to do with actual or budgeted. So you get your full marks if you mention points like this. And then let's move on to 3.5.1. What 3.5.1 has to do with this information? 3.5.1 read as follows. Explain why Juanita should be concerned about the actual amount spent on repairs and maintenance during October 2022. Quote a figure or calculation. You just have to quote a figure or calculation and get these 2 marks. How to quote a figure or calculation? She's concerned with an amount spent on repairs and maintenance. And you just look at the amount of repairs and maintenance from information H. Don't be confused about this. G might look similar, but from information H, repairs and maintenance. You look at repairs and maintenance. What was our budget? It was 30,000. The actual amount spent was 8,000 on repairs. That poses a huge risk. Now, underspending, it's very simple. You can see why Juanita is concerned, because they underspend on underspending by, or underspending of, you look at repairs, underspending of 12,000, and you just quoted that figure of 12,000, and that underspending of 12,000 is, you can also put a percentage there if you like. Let's look at it in terms of percentage. You say, okay, percentage here is repairs and maintenance, the difference, which is 22,000, divide by 30,000, and you get that it is underspent by 73%. That 73%, you can see, multiplied by 100 to actually get that 73%, 73.3%. So when you look at your answer, you say underspent of 12,000, budget of 73.3% was not used, or was not utilized, was not used. So this again poses a risk, very risk, long-term operations of the asset, neglecting maintenance can cause a damage in a long run. So this is your 2 marks that you must just take advantage of when question like this in a long run, when question like this comes up, and you are good to go. Now we look at 3.2.2. What about 3.2.2? Let's read the question there. I think it has to do with this information again on point H. 3.2.2, 3.5.2, beg your pardon. James feels that there has been a lack of control over the amount spent on delivery expenses and packing material. Explain whether James' opinion is correct or not. Provide calculations or quoting figures is very important. Now, James feels in terms of what? In terms of delivery expenses. Now, we're going to be looking at delivery expenses and see what we can pick up, but it's the same logic in terms of this. You look at delivery expenses. The budget was 35,046. The actual amount spent was 42,896. Now we're going to start answering these delivery expenses. And when you look at delivery expenses, the budget was 35 and the actual was, so it was well maintained. Because they spent it. Let's use the percentage. You look at it and say delivery expenses 7,850 divided by delivery expenses 35,046, and you like they've spent 22% more than budgeted for. Well maintained. And then you mentioned that percentage, 22.4% spent more than budgeted for. Maybe you can also mention one other point for completeness sake, is the point of the cost per unit, to say 35,046 divided by the units sold. 35,046 divided by units sold. Let's write it just here. 35,046 divided by units sold, 7080. And we also check the actual in terms of this set calculation, 42,896 divided by units sold as well in terms of actual 11,470. And then let's quickly do these calculations, because you want to use these calculations in your final answer as well. 35,046 to determine the cost per unit, 80,495, and the cost per unit actual 42,896 divided by 11,470, and again you get 374.74. And then you will give the answer to say delivery cost per unit, is R3.74 compared to budgeted, which is R4.95. And then you quoted figures in a difficult way, in an easy way. It depends on you how you do it, but it's just 4 marks. And take these other 4 marks of explanation of packing material. Is the same principle. Let's look at packing material. The variance is positive now. You see, budgeted was 23, actual was 37. And then you look at packing material again. We say, let's look at the budget in terms of this packing material. We're gonna say, I want to put it here. In terms of this packing material, we're gonna say 14,486 divided by the budget is 23,364, which is 62%. And then you say packing material is 62% more than budgeted for. Packing material is 62% more than budgeted for. And that is your answer. And you mentioned a percentage. How did I get this 62%? I took the variance in terms of packing material, which is 14,486. Let me write it here. 14,486, and then I divided by the budget. And the budget of that amount is 23,364. 23,364. And again, I have an option of calculating again what I calculated there as the delivery cost per unit. Let me calculate packing material cost per unit. Packing material cost per unit. And it's the same logic that I did in the previous exercise. And that logic is, or in the previous answer, that logic is 23,364. Let's write it here. 23,364 divided by the sales, which is per unit 70, 80, just like we did last time. And you can complete it on your own, which is equals to 23,364. 23,364 divided by 70, 80. 3.30. You can write that 3,3 per unit is 3.30 compared to actual per unit, and then you calculate that. And that is how you do your answer in terms of 3.5.2. And the last question is, Juanita wants to use social media to create an online shopping platform to increase her sales from January 2023. Name 3 additional payments that must be included in the January 2023 budget. So now think about things like, because they must have more delivery vehicles. Think about such as more staff that will be participating online. Think about computers, softwares, hardwares, whatever that you're going to mention there. Think about advertising, whatever that you're going to pick 3 points out of your general knowledge and give back to the examiners and ensure that you get your maximum marks. See you in the next tutorial.